Welcome to Boomcast, the official podcast from Boombox.io.
I'm MusicByLukas.
And I'm Noize London.
Boombox is the new home of collaboration. Store, organize, and collaborate like never before. Go start your free account today. Today, we have a very special guest on the podcast, one of the real legends when it comes to music production tutorials. I would say, honestly, one of the OG influencers. Before there was really music production influencers, there was Zen World. This is really exciting to have you on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on, and you're very kind. I think I think you're right. I was one of the first. But there were people before me for sure. Like Sadaway Production, Boy in
We
a Band,
ignore all of them. It's just you. No.
Thank you.
And since you're big on sound design, that is our big question for all of you guys watching to comment below. Comment and let us know if you sound design, if you are a beginner, if you've never done it before, which plugins you use to sound design, and someone who comments will get a $500 gift card for their studio gear, maybe for some plugins for sound design. So make sure to comment below.
Zen World, YouTuber,
Fabio,
producer, sound designer, and that's what we want to focus on today. I imagine when a lot of people come into music production, they think about being superstar DJs, right?
Right.
You are incredibly talented sound designer, something that I think has become a much, much more important part and well-recognized part of the industry. How did you end up becoming a sound designer?
I'll be honest, producer first. I used to frequent the forums of a lot of production communities, the main one being Ajuna Beats. And at that time, I think Skrillex was on the come up. I think he did like Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, and started reading a thread where a lot of producers were bashing him because I guess it came to light that a lot of the sounds were presets and a lot of sampled one shots. I'm the type of guy that thinks way too ahead. So I was like, if I ever get big, I don't want people talking about me like this. I was like straight up. So that's when I took it on myself to learn sound design fully, which I don't know if that's the thing you should do when you're learning how to make music, focus on other stuff. But I said, you know what, I'm going to learn sound design. So that's the way it started.
And was there any tutorials or anything like that out there back then? Or what was the first steps?
No, yeah, there were a few tutorials. Boy in a Band, back then I was using Reason. So I think he had a Thor. That's the synth and Reason 4. So I started off with those, but eventually, obviously the presets existed back then.
Right.
And I kind of realized, I could reverse engineer the presets to learn how to make the sounds. So a lot of my earlier career, I was learning tricks by just reverse engineering sounds from like Vandalism. But yeah, just reverse engineering, man. Learned a lot of cool stuff. Eventually got analog synths, which, to be honest, a lot of it is pre-routed for you. So I learned even more. Like, I didn't know you could put the envelope on a pitch or on certain parameters, because when you're in a digital synth like Serum, you have to route it. Like the LFO has to go here. Even Silent, it doesn't have an envelope routed to the pitch as well. So it's really cool stuff. That's how I went about it.
Do you think that sound design is becoming a more fundamental part of a producer's day-to-day and music creation?
Yes and no. I think that obviously having a signature sound is the ideal thing, but I feel like there's much more to it, like the way you use the sound versus like the sound itself. Like the new Dom Dollar track or Medusa track I just did like a video on how to do. That's a very basic sound. Like you read the comments on YouTube, you got the haters, they're saying, that's just Benny Benassi sound from back in the day, right? But the Benny Benassi sound goes down, right? Versus the Medusa one, it's like it's a gated one. It's still the same sound, but just adding that gate to it made it unique in a sense, right? So to me, I feel like yes and no. I feel like you can also use production techniques to make sounds that are already known to work just sound a little more unique by just adding the fret again, like gate and shit,
If you're a beginner at sound design, like if someone's watching this and has no idea, like what plugins would you recommend would be the go-to? I mean, obviously they got to watch your YouTube channel, but like, what do you think they need besides like tutorials? Like, is there anything specific that you would say, like which sounds are the easiest to start with? Kicks, subs, leads?
Oh yeah, I don't even focus on kick subs. sub is probably the easiest. Saw-based sounds, square sounds, analog-based sounds, you know, like a Moog or Silent One. But the best synth probably to do it with a Serum, as long as you keep composure and use the analog shapes, you know, the basic shapes waveform. I'm pretty sure you've done soundbacks too, right? So you know that.
Oh, plenty, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of the big songs out there that you hear are just basic saw squares. That's mainly it. And I feel like, yeah, sound design's cool and you can get crazy with it, but don't overcomplicate it, you know? But Serum is the one I would tell people to learn because it's very visual. So it's very easy to learn, oh, the filter opens up like this, or like, oh, a saw looks like this and it sounds like this, versus when you use other synths, sometimes the fact that it's not visual makes it harder. Even the LFO, right? You shape a sound with it and you know it's going to sound beep because you can see it.
Yes.
Versus on an analog synth like a Moog, it's like, decay does what? Exactly, right? So Serum, man, that's the way. Vital too, if you want a free one.
Right.
Massive back in the day. That I felt like that was like the sound design tool. And YouTube videos, of which there weren't very many. Drum and bass was like the big thing back then too. I'm talking 13 years ago or something like that. And just sitting there and being like, on earth is going on? And then back to your message about when you're talking about presets. I remember Silent came out and someone brought it to my house and was like, this is the synth that Swedish House Mafia used. And we went through every single preset and it's like House Mafia 1 preset and this and this and this. And then eventually Serum came out, and I totally agree with you. I was like, the thing that made Serum so powerful was that when you add something to the matrix, when you modulate one part of Serum to another, right, use as a trigger, you see it happening, and that just makes so much more sense. And same Vital, when things are hidden in the background of the modulation matrix, like they are with analog synths, and I learned on analog synths, I found that it took a lot more for my brain to compute what was going on unless I drew it on a piece of paper and drew out the routing. If you have a preset, and like you said, you know, it's how you produce the preset and what you do with it. Do you think sound design, aside from waveforms and envelopes, how much of it is also part of the effects section? So I'm talking distortion, reverb, delay, chorus, and things that come internally and then also on top of that.
Well, my specialty is doing presets, you know, because my goal is to help the common producer. That's always been my goal. So I try to make my presets sound as good as possible. Of course, there's sounds out there like, you know, Sonderling. They have like this insane saw lead, but then it has this like delay on it that makes it unique, like right? So that goes to the effects. But I agree. I do think effects play a huge role in the way the sound can be shaped. The reverb you put, delay, you know, obviously you have tone filter delays in a way where like it sounds metallic, so you make it sound that way. Chorus, right? You have a basic saw, you can turn that into like a super saw sort of, but then if you want more of an old school vibe, you go with chorus. You can shape the sound with EQ. That's a big one. You know, a lot of us see EQ as a mixing technique, but you can shape the sound of a saw, for instance, and make it sound different than someone else's by just boosting somewhere else that they don't. Like most people like to boost the highs, right? But what if you boosted the mid-lows over compression? You know, compress something, you know, like the old timers are like, dynamics. Nah, bro, like straight up compress the crap out of a saw and you get what the Armin van Buuren and W&W, like, you know, big D-sharp fat sound. David Guetta, you know, the Future Rave sound, bro. It's basic saw, right? But over compressed, but that's the sound, right? So yeah, there's a lot to the effects as well. And I think that comes, what would you call it? Mixing, or would you call that sound design too?
I think I still consider all of that sound design. Do you know what I mean? Until you're actually like mixing, you're looking to bring everything together, which is what mixing is, right? It's the balance of all the elements. When I put like an EQ on, maybe I'm not doing it within Serum, I'm putting it directly on the channel and reverb and delay. This for me is still very much part of the creative process. And it's not that I think mixing isn't creative. It's just that I feel like, you know, people talk about like the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain.
Right.
Sure.
One is logical and technical. I feel the same way about sound design and mixing, because if you start to intertwine the two too much, you might get caught up in trying to clean up a sound where really you're just trying to get a bunch of character out of it.
So I have a random question that I'm sure you've answered a million times, but I don't know the answer, so I'm going to ask it anyway because I have you here. But why do you say beep beep? What's up, ninjas?
Okay, yeah.
Where'd this come from?
Okay, so I think there was a time in my YouTube career where I was like, I was reading books and obviously, watching tutorials. I think you can learn anything on YouTube. So everyone says you have to have a community. You have to have something that everyone can know you for, just like that. And I used to be into a lot of fitness, like bodybuilding. So there's this guy named Louis DeMarco. I don't know if he still makes videos, but
okay.
He'd always start beep, beep, recording now. So that's how it started. And then the ninjas thing was just more of a thing of, I have a tattoo of the yin yang. So obviously I'm into that sort of culture side of stuff. And I always loved ninjas as a kid. So I was like, yeah, let's call them ninjas. So
that's cool.
So that's the way it came. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. And it's one of those ones that's interesting too. So you think of it, you're like, oh, what is that about? I'm sure you get that question a lot. But I have another question as well, which is you were talking about how and this is what a lot of people always say. They say you want to be a sound designer, you want to know sound design because you want to be able to have unique music, you want to be able to stand out, you want to have your own sound, blah, blah, blah. But my question is to the people who are out there, like basically thinking like, hey, every sound has been made. You know what I mean? Like there is a good argument for that. Like you can only make so many sounds. And we do try obviously to push the limits and do different things. But what do you think with sound design, if you're trying to be unique, like how do you do that with like, let's say a specific genre? Is it just trying to bring elements that you don't hear commonly in that genre or?
Yeah, I would say, I teach people as well how to make music. And one of the hardest things as a teacher, I've had to ask myself is how do I teach someone to be unique, how to be creative? It's very hard to do. But one of the things that has helped is reading, obviously, I think everyone's read Steal Like an Artist. So the idea of mixing maybe, like everyone uses a Reese and the break with beautiful vocals on top, but what if the thing that separates it is you're still using the Reese, but now you're bringing in a drum and bass element, and maybe resampling it, right? So you could have it go boom, boom, bah, 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 bah.
Right.
Little things like that, exactly. So
things.
like you were saying, maybe like learn sound design for other genres, and then see if there's a way that you can, put it into the stuff you make without being too different, because obviously, you do something too much, then you kind of kill the song. But if you can have it be a neat effect, then it's cool. I mean, I was hearing this Art Bat sound. I think the track is called Flame. I'm not too sure. But yeah, I mean, they have a drum and bass element in the break, and the song did good because of it. It was like straight up boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And that was the break.
It catches your attention.
Exactly, right? But we all use the break, a Reese in the break, but they did it different. They went to drum and bass to get that. David Guetta with like basic saws, but with like a techno sort of element to it. So there you go.
I just want to point to something that you just did, and I feel it's how a lot of producers actually talk 9 times out of 10 in the studio is reenacting the sound of like, can we get like and someone's like, yeah, I know how to make that, and they go in, well, I have the
it's a common language, bro. It doesn't matter what language you talk, you can interact.
You can interact with sounds. That's true.
Yeah.
We just want to say thank you to Boombox for allowing this collaboration to be possible. Go sign up at www.boombox.io for your free account, which includes 4 gigabytes of free storage, and then you can add collaborators, they can comment on your tracks, and you can have seamless feedback back and forth to make sure your track is perfect by the time it's done.
100%. So now it's time for the out of the box question, which is if you have to cook yourself and you need to make something quick, like, or maybe not make something quick, but like, do you have a meal that you know how to cook? Like people are like, oh, you should try my lasagna, or you should try my whatever. Like I'm talking like you have to actually make it. It can't be like, you know what I mean? It can't be like something out of a box. Do you have something you can actually cook that's your go-to?
Oh man. Yeah, I'm a griller, bro. I grill a lot. So
there you go.
I don't know if that counts because you're just putting salt and pepper on a steak. Yeah, dude.
You have to watch it. You have to babysit it a bit.
Yeah, come on, dude. There's more to it. You gotta have the meat thermometer and like But
Oh,
yeah,
you're
I would say
hardcore. You're hardcore. I
yes,
like that.
yes. I'm into it, man. Like lately lifestyle changes too, as more like carnivorish, you know, like no,
Sure.
I'm keto now, so bunch of meat, bro.
I have two dishes, but I'll just go with one of them because I feel like it's the most expected. Is I make a really mean carbonara,
Ooh,
and that's just
damn.
exercise,
Yeah.
my
Are you
Italian blood.
Oh, okay, you are Italian. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you trust. It's like he's like, I'm Italian. We're like, all right, we'll try it. Let's go. There you go. Mine
Yeah.
is random. I can make a good pad thai. So there you go. I can throw in some Thai food. So let's dive in deeper.
So I want to add here that Zen did very kindly send me his evolution number two.
Number
Explorations,
two.
volume
Number
two.
two.
Yes, number two. Sorry, exploration of sound. Is that
Oh,
what
sorry. Yeah, the pack itself is Explorations Volume 2. Melodic House, bro.
melodic techno? I think it was.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah,
And
Melodic House, melodic
what's
techno.
your 100% honest, serious, non-biased review?
Yes. Tell
It's
me now.
it's great, and it's not just great, but it's diverse too.
Love
Do you
it.
know what I mean? I think it's not just like it definitely it falls into the category of that genre, like the sounds. You feel like where they would sit in a track. But then I think sometimes with preset packs, you can be like, oh, I've heard that before. I've heard that before. And
Mm,
it's just not that it's not that inspiring. But what I really like that you've done is you've added your effects to the macros on
that's key.
and then you've named them, and the
Mm.
effects that you've created, the effect chains that you created, I think are also the most inspiring part. So if you have downloaded Zens packs, make sure you check out those macros because I missed them at first.
Yes. I
You
honestly feel like when there's not macros assigned and they're not like labeled and stuff like that, I just feel like, I don't know, the pack doesn't seem quite as cool. You know what I mean? Like you got to take
Yeah, yeah.
advantage of all the tools.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, man. I try and promote that side too, because like again, I'm a producer, sound designer, mainly sound designer though. That's where I
Mhm.
make majority of my income. But I like to have the producer side because it allows for good macros, right? Like in that pack that you were talking about, Fabio, I think in some of the leads,
Mhm.
there's macros for adding layers or opening the lead up because in that genre, right, it's sort of like
Mm.
the plug will start. You usually have like some sort of sequence start playing, and it's playing throughout the whole song, but how do you keep it interesting?
Yeah.
So again, as a producer that's made it, I'm like, oh, well, you can like,
Mhm.
starts out like a plug and then you move the macro and it turns it into a lead where it's like da 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 instead of da da da,
Right.
right? You add a layer to it. So for instance, Serum has a sub oscillator, which is just another oscillator with like basic analog shape. So why not use that to add a top layer? So the macros are set up like that. And I agree with you, man. I always tell people if presets don't have macros, you're getting scammed, bro. Go find a new sound designer, dog.
Yeah.
I have an interesting follow up on that one. So, sound design. So over time, more and more people have sold sound banks. Like in the beginning, there wasn't that many preset pack companies to go to,
Yeah.
and then as Splice came out, and then also like almost every producer, practically it seems, is selling their sound bank or their presets or their sample pack or whatever. So someone like yourself who has his own business when it comes to selling sounds, essentially.
Yeah.
How is the climate changed, and how does someone, like, let's say someone's watching this who is a pretty darn good sound designer and wants to sell their own pack or even just wants to distribute it for free, like what's the best way, what are some marketing tips essentially to stand out with all the competition out there for packs?
It's a lot of answers to it because I feel like mine's is not the best, but it's
Mm,
it's what's worked for me. It's just being valuable. I think the thing that
yeah.
separates a sound bank from another sound bank, assuming they're all the same sounds, is how much that person likes you, how much
Yeah.
they value, and how much do they feel grateful towards you for creating it.
Mm,
So for me, it's always been about being valuable. How can I use my sounds to help people? So for instance, I might teach people how to make a drop like
mm,
so and so, or like, and then do tutorials based around it. So for instance, if I'm going to release like a techno sound bank, right, which I have Paradox Volume 4 coming out next month, which usually does amazing.
nice.
Yeah, I love the techno community. They support my packs heavily. I'll start making content based around the pack, around that sound. So by the time it comes out, people trust. They're like, this guy knows what he's doing. The sounds he's been
Right.
using to teach sound amazing. So you're sort of putting hints here and there, using the sounds, not promoting them, but letting them hear it while you're teaching them.
I love that idea. Yeah.
That's what's worked best for me personally. I mean, just market it and show the sound. So like Seven Skies does it, right? Facebook ads, Instagram ads. If the sounds are good, they're good.
Yeah, so you get to know which people are good. Like you said, Seven Skies, like, you know, that's quality, you know, when you're getting those sounds. Yeah.
So I was going to say your approach is so smart, because I think humans are innately lazy too. So you're going to show them how to make a sound that's going to be awesome, but humans are so impatient, you know? And so ultimately they'll be like, this is an amazing sound. You know what? I want it for myself. I trust, and I'm just going to purchase it.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Well, one thing a lot of people forget about too, though, is like you could get a sound pack and try to recreate those sounds and test them back and forth compared to the pro sound. It's the same thing with like, I always say, like, it could be a good idea to get your track professionally mastered by an engineer, even if you want to master it yourself, so that you can hear the difference, so that you can use that as a reference. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I also agree with you though, Fab, about how, like, yeah, sometimes you just want to get the pack. Like, you're like, I don't want to have to design all these from scratch, or maybe it's just not your favorite thing. Some people, that's another thing that's a really interesting topic to dive into, is that I feel like some producers are under the impression that in order to be a quote unquote good producer, they have to be good at everything. And the thing that I think a lot of us forget is that mastering is its own profession. Sound design is its own profession. Like, people literally win Grammys for these specific things, like sound design, you know, mixing, mastering, all that kind of stuff. And I think we have to take a little bit of the pressure off ourselves sometimes and know that, like, yeah, it's obviously cool to learn, and like, you should explore different things. But don't put the pressure on yourself to be as good as Zen World at sound design, as good as Fabio at you know, engineering, as good, you know what I mean? Like, that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%, bro. That's the way I see it. I just tell people, I'm trying to make your lives easier. That's all. A lot of people are good producers, but then they just don't have the sounds to make their ideas come to life. But once they have it, they're like, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. I'm gonna quote and butcher this quote at exactly the same time.
There you go.
I read a while ago, which maybe you've both seen in the past.
You're gonna say the quote with a British accent though, so it doesn't matter if you butcher it; it'll still sound good.
It's someone criticized me for using a sample, so I went ahead and recorded my own snare, and then someone criticized me for using the snare, so I went out, killed a goat, skinned it, and made my own drum. And it's kind of like this.
Oh yeah, it just keeps going deeper.
He's going deeper and deeper. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like
Diplo.
The idea that like someone is criticizing or scrutinizing the fact that you're using something pre-made should never be the case, because it's all about how you use it, right?
Yeah,
100%.
How you bring it together.
3 biggest sound design mistakes of people who try to sound design. What do you think?
Oh, I have a good amount. So let me do my
He's like, I got more than 3.
Yeah, it's actually because it's been a video idea as well. Too many effects, number one. And I think, you know, that's the beautiful thing about knowing a bit of everything, mixing, you know, like sound design, producing. When you mix, right? I feel like a lot of producers overdo their effects, delays, reverbs, flangers, phasers. You know, so what I see a lot is people just getting too fancy. It kills the integrity of the sound when they're trying to achieve something else. So one of the best things is people like, why don't my leads sound fucking cool? Like, why do they sound weak compared to so-and-so? And then you look at so-and-so, the thing they're comparing to, and it's like a basic super song. Right? And then they're putting flangers and phasers. So overdoing it, over effects. Over layering, I think it's another big one. I don't think this one's done as much because the field has changed from like big room to more like techie stuff. But yeah, I remember like back then FL Studio producers would like layer 12 leads together. Right? To me, that's just, as a sound designer, it makes no sense, because you have a bunch of like the same sound, saws, squares interacting, right? So when you get an inverse of that, it phases out. Unless you're going for a phased out sound, it works. If you're not, well, now you're running more risk. And then Fabio's going to get this lead and go, what the fuck did you do? So I see that a lot. I think the last one I would say probably is trying to do something another synth is good at with the synth you have. So for instance, Serum, I mean, it has FM, but it's probably not the best FM synth. You would go more for like Operator or FM8 if you wanted like real FM, or Dex, right, which is a free FM synthesizer. I've done that mistake trying to remake sounds that were made like on an OBXA or something, like you know, this old, like trying to capture the warmth and stuff. Like, yeah, a lot of the times you have to switch the tool you're using. You can't expect Silent to make that dubstep growl, right? You go to Serum for that, or Massive. So it's probably the third one I would add in there.
I totally agree that, you know, trying to get something that is sort of quite naturally digital sounding to try and sound really analog, it's just, you're going to be, it's an uphill battle. You know, there are different synths out there for different reasons, and although they all produce the same waveforms and they all have envelopes, ultimately they all have a different character. So think about, you know, as when clients come to me and I teach people as well, they say, I'm looking to get this sound. I'm like, well, this is more of an analog sound, so you're going to want these synths here. And they're like, oh, but I use Serum, can I use that? I'm like, you could, but you could also save yourself a lot of stress and use something else. So I think that's a really, really valid point that I haven't thought about in a long time. Something I take for granted. But special thanks to Zen World for being here. And you can find all our details and Instagram handles in the link in the description below. Big thanks to Boombox for making this collaboration possible.
Yes, and make sure to comment below if you're a sound designer, which plugins you use, if any of the tips sounded good to you, or if you learned anything from this podcast. And someone who comments is going to be entered to win $500 in either studio gear, plugins, whatever you need to help you make better music. And yes, go check out boombox.io. You can find all of our details, like Fabio said, in the description, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye.